Welcome to my ultimate stamping zone. This is Mary Fish with Stampin' Pretty. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator, and I wanted to share with you my excitement for my new craft area and stamping zone. I'll pan around a little bit and then I will get started with my desk area. I spend a good amount of the day running my Stampin' Up! Business, helping customers, addressing my downline, and creating for my blog that is stampinpretty.com. I love it clutter-free, and I also used to have it facing the wall and opted to have it facing out over the loft area, primarily because I can take in and enjoy the landscape of Arizona, which really energizes and keeps me inspired. There are the mountains, some bougainvillea, I've got little golden barrels, one of my favorite desert plants, some palms, and you can even see the pool. So when I need a little break from the computer, I'm very fortunate to be sustained by the Arizona landscape and beauty. Over here, highly recommend that you incorporate personal things into your stamping space. This little table was designed by my daughter at the age of 5. She's now getting ready to go to college. She painted it blue and added the decals, and it will mean so much more when I'm an empty nester. But it makes a great little printer stand for me. So it works right into the landscape, still keeps things clutter-free for me, but it's a special spot. And this is a very special spot for my Isabel. She spends a lot of time up here with me, just relaxing, most of the time sleeping, but that's her little spot. Can't forget my most loyal stamping buddy. Up above, inexpensive art. I used a Decor Elements Create definition. Had it, I personally transferred it to some mat board and had it framed. They do not make this specific definition anymore, but there are lots of choices in Decor Elements where you can make some appropriate and inexpensive art. And by appropriate, what could be more appropriate than the word create? Over here I have my 8.5 by 11 paper racks. I was so lucky, my husband spotted these on clearance at a hobby store back in Madison, Wisconsin, where we scooped them up. They were just a display rack, not something that was actually being sold. And I have a space for every single one of my Stampin' Up! Colors, and to the far end I also have all my special papers. So everything is in one place. And I have these charts available on my blog if you want to download them. They help me keep things organized. I just add a little scrap, a little square, I should say, of cardstock and ink, and they coordinate with the colors below. I have them organized by the different color collections. For example, this one is Brights, and this one is Regals. And then to store my scraps with each one of the colors, I have one of these little project sleeves for keeping the scraps, because I don't like to waste anything. Paper is so precious. And continuing my paper storage, inside of this cabinet, I have plastic trays that work for my 12 by 12 designer series paper and 12 by 12 paper. And I use the Stampin' Up! 12 by 12 dividers to keep them labeled and organized. And I just store the scraps right on top. So everything is all together. Very, very simple. And then this is my cutting area, where I have my punches, my Big Shot, my paper cutter. I store both the new design and the old design on these IKEA Bygel, B-Y-G-E-L rails. They work great. Wall space is important if you're trying to save on drawer space and cabinet space, because it gets things up and off, and it's easy to take them off, use them, and pop them right back in their perfect spot. Up above, I have, these cabinets are designed to open up. As a matter of fact, the hinge was one of the reasons it took so long to get you the video. It originally didn't hold the doors up, and now it does. And this is actually a great little hideaway for my photo studio. No more big clunky tent for me. I literally just use these relatively inexpensive lamps with daylight bulbs, and this is just a cheapo little piece of white foamy. And I love it because there's no seam, it's just continuous, and it really works great. By the time I turn on the lights, it's bright white, a perfect setting for card photography. And the best part is I literally just close and go, and no one sees that I have that up there. I like hiding things away when I can. I do my paper cutting here, and down below I swoosh it in to this bin. Highly recommend you work it into your stamping space if you possibly can. And I have my little, I call this my tool chest. I've got lots of my Stampin' Up! Tools here. This entire section is dedicated to the Big Shot. I have all kinds of Big Shot items, plates, and I've got my little dies in the small insert. Stampin' Up! Actually sells this insert where I can organize a little library of my sizzlets and dies. And the next drawer is entirely dedicated to my dies. I have the large inserts from Stampin' Up! Used to store them away. So it's great because I use these a lot and I want to make sure I can easily see what I need. My Big Shot gets its very own drawer. It's a very good friend for me. I love the Stampin' Up! Big Shot, and being able to tuck it away in a drawer allows me to free up some counter space, which is important to me. These additional cabinets up here basically just house some additional idea and inspiration areas, old catalogs and the like. Stepping back, you'll note that I actually have a drop-down area, and this is because I found when I used to craft on an even surface that I would allow things to kind of accumulate around me as I was making decisions, and I felt overwhelmed. So this area stays clutter-free, and all of my cutting and punching happens down here, and then all of my stamping and adding color, I call it my color area, my ribbon and embellishments happen right here. So let me explore a little closer with you. This is the Stampin' Up! Color Caddy. I think it's essential to have a way to keep your stamps organized by color. I happen to keep them in the actual color collections. For example, all the neutrals are here. And then up above, I have another one of my files. I use the Stack and Stores. This is for my buttons. You'll see a little OCD action here where I have sorted the different spice rack buttons by color, and yeah, it looks like I did it with the Holly Berry bouquet buttons also. So buttons on that one, and then on this Stack and Store I have all of my different brads and additional little embellishments. But it's just a great way to keep things organized and easy to see. I think making them easy to see is important. These X cubes are available online. They keep changing the names, but it's best to store your Stampin' Right markers vertically. It keeps them more evenly inked. And I have them also stored by color family. And then I have some little drawers for odds and ends like sponges and daubers and my white gel pens. And here is my ribbon storage. I used from Lowe's or Home Depot, I can't remember which. These are just curtain rod holders, and then I have a rod sitting on top. I do not remove them from the rack each time, otherwise I'd have to slide them all off. I actually use them while they are right on here, lay it on my card, estimate how much I need, and snip right from here. And then I just keep them organized by, you know, like ribbon, the satin ribbon area and the ruffled ribbon area. So pretty simple and organized. Over here, I keep all of my clear blocks, and I keep them in the caddy so they don't slide around. You'll also notice that I'm using our placement guides in between when I clean my blocks, and I recommend you clean your blocks on a fairly regular basis, probably a minimum of once a month with Dawn liquid. Keeps them very cling friendly. But I do keep the placement guides on some of the blocks where I use sentiments and want to line things up with ease. Down below, this is all dedicated to adhesives. You'll see my sticky strip, my Stampin' Dimensionals, mini glue dots, and at the bottom is all of my cleaning supplies, Stampin' Scrub, Stampin' Mist. I even have some Goo Gone for cleaning up, you know, gunky scissors, things like that. In this drawer, I have my grid paper, which I like to use to protect my surfaces, and I have a little box here that contains paper daisies, and it contains the basic jewels, pearls, and rhinestones. And you'll also notice that, for example, with my glitter, I'm repurposing some of the packaging that's become available to me now that I'm converting many of my wood mount stamps to clear mount. So a great way to organize your glitter or whatever it is you need to organize all in one place. Speaking of which, this store is primarily all about embossing. And even though it's a bit of a storage hog, I actually have a specific package for each one of my embossing powders. That way I can sprinkle, emboss, tap, and have everything in one place and just close it up, and there's no cleanup. The powder pals are still great, especially if you're short on space. But this allows me, I note that I use my embossing powders a lot more when they each have their own little spot. And the reason I keep the canisters in there is because it tells me what I'm using, so I know what color it is. And finally, in this large bottom drawer, I have my wood mount stamps, which are a diminishing breed for me. I like our clear mount, but I have them organized by size and then alphabetically. These areas are all, stepping back, just storage, primarily storage, and actually there's a lot of open space, which is great. I'll be, I'm sure, working my way into that. My crowning jewel in here in terms of storage was finding these DVD racks for my clear mount stamps. Just love them. They are from IKEA. Each rack was roughly $6 or $7, which I consider budget friendly. And they also are wall space, so now these stamps aren't taking up drawer space at all for me. And I love the geometry of it. As a matter of fact, they're supposed to actually go vertically, and I've opted to mount them horizontally. And the reason I've done that is kind of like high heels. I like the way they look, even though they may not be practical. But getting closer, there is a practical purpose. It is much easier for me to read the titles that Stampin' Up! Has on the spines and see the images if the boxes themselves are going horizontally. The drawback is if you put an individual one in, it can fall through. So the only trick, and it's not really difficult, is to grab them as a group and put them back as a group flush against the wall. And finally, I have a little dedicated postal drawer. I so wanted a place where I could easily get my cards off in the mail. And so I have my stamps, address return labels, and my little scale here, along with catalogs and envelopes so that I can get things out in a hurry. And then wrapping up, a couple things. I did add wood floors to this space. It was a bit of an indulgence, but it really warms things up. It's much easier to clean, I find, than carpeting. And I love them. I guess that's the bottom line. And I also added solar tubes up above, which bring in a tremendous amount of natural light. I have all the lights on right now, but even with the lights off, there are many times of the day where I don't need anything but these. So thank you. I hope you took a little tip with you. And my Isabel says, thank you for joining us in our stamping space. It has been a complete pleasure putting this together and being able to share it with you. I have to tell you, having an organized space just enhances the whole experience of card making, scrapbooking, and designing, because it's just easy not only to find everything, but to put it away quickly and have more time to create. So again, thank you for joining me. This is Mary Fish with Stampin' Pretty. Bye-bye.